Unfortunately, this foster care was one, this is a very common thing. This foster care was one that was being exploited to use kids as sex slaves.
Welcome to the From Within podcast with Ben Osterveld.
Hey everyone, Ben Osterveld here. I have Jeweliet Tangen. Is that how you say your last name? I should have really asked you that during the pre-talk. I'm like, how do I say your last name? Anyways,
you nailed it.
Okay, that's awesome. This is a really special interview. This is the From Within podcast. The whole point of the podcast, though, is of course we want to have mega success. We want to reach our potential. The thing is, though, people get stuck, and the whole idea of the podcast is, what do we overcome personally? Like what's our backstory? What's all about? What holds us back from really reaching to that? Maybe it's purpose, maybe it's destiny, maybe it's nothing like that, but it's just like the from within conversation in business is what I'm trying to put together. Because I think at the end of the day, we have so many business knowledge, so much knowledge, but people are still stuck. We have Google, and Google gives us all the answers, but no one even friggin's winning. So there has to be something else. And I personally believe from within is the answer. So welcome to the show, Jeweliet. I am excited to interview you. I deeply am excited. Like, it's not like I'm just saying that because you're a guest and that's my script. I really am really excited to get to know you. And so thank you so much for taking the time and jumping on with me.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really excited to be here as well. I met your wife and she really hyped me up about it. So I'm stoked to be here.
Oh, she didn't say bad things? Yes. Like, watch out.
She's super funny, actually. I like her a lot.
She is funny. She is funny. Yeah, she's cool. I can see you guys get along real well. So why don't we just get plugged in? I'm not the guy that does the big script and the big giant, like bio, because I have a trouble reading and then it sounds really bad when I'm skipping over my words and I wreck it. So what I want to do is just a quick summary here. We're going to get into your backstory, which I'm very happy you're willing to share. Many people aren't. You grew up in, you know what, forget it. Let's do this. Tell me your story. Tell me where you started. Give me the backstory. Let's get right into it. Let's not waste any time.
Yeah. So for the first 6 years of my life, I grew up in foster care. When I was a baby, my mom, she was on drugs. So I actually came out addicted to heroin. So I had like some, drug addicted babies kind of have some issues usually, like health wise. And so she, for whatever reason, just felt like she couldn't take care of me or just, wanted to do drugs more. So she left me on this doorstep, but this doorstep was actually the home to a foster care. And that seems lucky, that I didn't get left on just like any doorstep. It was foster care. Unfortunately, this foster care was one, this is a very common thing. This foster care was one that was being exploited to use kids as sex slaves. And so basically the mechanism of it was that they would have these like older women, usually in their 50s or 60s, go out and apply to get their foster care license. And then these men came into town and like basically bullied these women into doing that, right? Because it's a very poor area. And so they bullied these women into getting their foster care license. And that was, in hindsight, smart of these men, because kids that are in the foster care system, no one really cares about them. And there's not enough money to come and like protect them and check on them all the time. And we're like way out in the boonies, right? Wow. So over many years, they were able to form this camp of children. And so there was several houses in my neighborhood that were participating in this, where each house would have like 4 to 5 kids. And what they would do could best be described now that I am an adult as like satanic rituals would be the closest thing that I could maybe compare it to. But there was a lot of physical abuse, as you can imagine. There's a lot of neglect, but there was also a lot of sexual abuse. I think where things start to get a little bit crazy in my story is that there's also a lot of torture, and there's a lot of like weapon use, and there's a lot of things like that. So when people ask me to describe my childhood, I remember I was like 10 years old and I was sitting in the therapist's office. This is like well after I was adopted. And she's like, so I'd like to talk to you about your childhood. Cause I was having like behavioral issues and she just, no one knew my story at that time. She's like, so describe your childhood in one word. And now I'm a kid that has ADD and I just like, say whatever I want. So the first word that came out of my mouth is bloody. And when I think of my childhood now, That's fairly accurate. The things that I saw, I don't know if you want me to go into too much detail because it's a little gory, but there was so much abuse, and the abuse was so much harsher and so much more disturbing than even most people can wrap their head around. And so that's how I grew up for 6 years. And this is something that happened every single day for many, many years. And so, as you can imagine, you start to become brainwashed as a child because this is all you've ever known.
For sure.
So you start to believe that this is normal. You start to believe that you deserve this. You start to believe their kind of like satanic, religious, like thinking about how the world operates and like what your purpose is in life and things like that.
Yeah, you don't know anything else. Like there's no perspective. Yeah.
Yeah. And it got pretty bad. I mean, like there were times when I was in foster care, like less than 6 years old. I remember we were with my friends who lived in the house with me, and we were like playing, you know, quote unquote, but just doing our best to like be happy. And that's what kids did. And I remember many times where we were doing our best to be happy, we would go play just because that's what kids do. They always try to make the best out of a crappy situation. And I remember we were like all playing, and my friend, who was a boy who just got it the worst. He was like one of the only boys in the camp, and he was just like scars on his body everywhere. He's just like open wounds. He's like 6 years old, but he looks like he's like 3. He's so malnourished. He's like a really scraggly kid. And he just like out of nowhere starts talking about running away. He's like, I want to run away. And I'm like, shit. Okay, me too. You know,
that's an option. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly. And I was so young, and I wouldn't go anywhere without him. He was like everything to me. So we went to run away, and I actually have a scar on my forehead from it because we were like, it's not funny, but we were like running. And do you know those barbed wire fence in the countries where they have like, so we were running, and we're young, and it's a camp, right? So we're not smart. We're running right through the middle of the camp, just thinking like we're gonna make it. And once we get over this fence, like it's home.
No other plan except get over the fence. Yeah.
Yes. And we made it to the fence. We did, but as we were like climbing over the fence, and you have to like avoid the barbed wire, obviously we got caught, and someone came and they like yanked my leg down because I was like at the top of the fence because Buddy wanted me to go first so that I had like the best chance of being free. And they yanked my leg down, and the barbed wire got stuck in my forehead. And so I'm just like, you can't see it now because this camera's shitty, but I have this scar here. And after that, I don't know if you can cuss on here, but we just got beat to crap.
Yeah, you can definitely cuss in here.
we got beat to shit after that, and it was so bad that then the conversation, we started talking about like how we didn't even want to be alive. Like we wanted to figure out a way to like just end the pain because the physical pain was just so bad. Yeah. And that's how I spent my life until I was 6 years old. When I was 6, I was really lucky to be adopted. It's a crazy story that no one ever gets a chance to feel or have this opportunity, but my mom adopted my biological sister like several years earlier. And so she was like with my sister, and somehow through the government, they found out that my sister had a sister, which was me. And my mom was like, well, you know, I want them to be together. I had no idea like who I was or what I was doing or anything. And she was like in her 50s, and she came looking for me, which is a little bit old to be adopting someone as young as I was. I think she hired a private investigator to come find me, or however she found me in this camp. She adopted me, took me out, obviously. And then I lived with her in my new family. That was like a very interesting experience because on one hand you're like excited and you're like woohoo, and then on the other hand you're like terrified because all you've ever known is like one thing. And then on the other hand, again, like you're leaving all your friends behind. So in my head, like no one knows the level of abuse. We were like indoctrinated. You never open your mouth or you die, basically. You die.
Yeah, that's how they do it.
Yeah. And so I was like, well, I can't tell my new family about what's going on because like these kids will die. So in my head, I'm just like panicking for years. Just like I had horrible sleep. I bad behavior, like I had bad anxiety, everything, just because I was like couldn't get it out of my head that these kids were still
Sure.
being abused. Yeah.
Wow.
And so, yeah, that's the beginning of my story. I got adopted after that. I lived with my family. I was lucky enough the state like paid for me to go to therapy and get all the help that I needed. It took years for it to like really pass. And even to this day, like I still have probably quote unquote side effects of it.
Yep.
I remember when I was like about 10 years old, my mom got married. And granted, this guy, he was a total fucking asshole. But one day my mom was like off at work, and one thing this guy was not was a pedophile, right? He was just an asshole. So my mom was like off at work one day, and he was out mowing the lawn, and somewhere in my brain, like that indoctrination and that brainwashing of my childhood kicked in.
Sure.
And I just like went into their bedroom, and I got naked, and I just laid on the bed and waited for him to like come inside and like be done. And he like came inside, and he just like flipped a gasket, as you can imagine.
What is going on?
And he barely knew me, right? Like they'd been married for like a minute. And so he panicked because he's like, how do I explain this?
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah. And then obviously, you know, call my mom immediately. And my mom, I think that was the first time that she realized I had been abused or that there was something going on. I had weird behavior patterns before then, but I think that was like where it really clicked that like there was something.
Yeah, a kid doesn't do that. That's why. Yeah.
Wrong.
How old were you, Jeweliet, when you did that?
I would say like 9 or 10 or so. So I was old, right? But you have to remember I was really stunted. So like I wasn't really educated. I didn't speak very well. I had like no basic knowledge, like leaving foster care. Like a kid that's 6 usually can like sing the alphabet and like tie their shoes and like walk and like things like that. Yeah. And for me, it was just like I could barely talk. So I was very stunted. Yeah. Go ahead.
So let me ask you something. You've gone through a ton of work, obviously, in your life. Like you can tell, like when you're talking about it, how does it feel? Like when you're talking about it? Because in my mind, like I've gone through, having been sexually abused, but I've got my share of scars as well. Yeah. And it's like, I can talk about it, no problem. Right. And I see that you can talk about it, no problem too. Right. It's like, I feel like is it healed? Like, is it a place where you're like, okay, like, you know what I mean? Like, why share? Why share, Jeweliet? You know what I mean? Like why?
I think in terms of like, how does it feel? I think I've felt really healed for many years. Last year around this time was about the first time I ever started really talking about like the details of the sexual abuse and like what it was really like. And that was really hard for me because I have a lot of family members that haven't heard that story. And granted, I don't really have much family, but, and it was difficult because as a woman, people don't, as anybody, people don't believe you.
Yeah.
And so
that's huge. I know that.
I was afraid. I mean, granted, this was like years ago. It's not like I was up there on a soapbox and I was like accusing a famous person, right? And like, you know, putting myself on a pedestal, but it was like, I had a lot of fear, and I still do to this day because I get a lot of hate still. And I always will, and that's okay. But I get a lot of crap, and you know, it's people just like they don't believe it, they can't wrap their head around it, or they think that like, it bothers them, or they think that you're using it for like
gain,
something other than what it is, which is like just trying to tell my story so that people know how bad it really is or can be, so that we can do something, because there are still kids that are going through what I went through.
So is it like almost like, hey, I've been sexually abused, and like, yeah. And like, no, I've been sexually abused. They're like, yeah. And okay, you want to know the real deal? Here's the deal. This is really what happened. And I feel like I understand that. It's like, oh yeah, no, yeah, I get it. No, you don't get it. Is it like that, Jeweliet?
It is like that, especially because I feel like, you know, in movies and things like that, when you see, because I've also been unfortunately assaulted as an adult as well. I had this like stalker and it went bad, but as an adult, like you see these scenes in movies and it depicted of like how sexual assault goes and like what happens and like what the woman does. And so it creates this like, I mean, people know it's bad, but it kind of creates this, they don't really know.
Yeah.
How much it breaks you and how much it'll like, if you let it, and it very easily can just like destroy you. So in a lot of ways, it feels good to talk about the story. I won't say it's like the easiest thing. I mean, for me, I get a lot of feedback actually that I talk about it too flippantly, like I'm too unemotional about it. And I think it's because I have done so much healing.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of other people, you know, like share their story on YouTube who have really powerful sex trafficking stories. And these women will be in their 40s and 50s and they'll be like
emotional,
crying. And I think that's okay. And that's great that they're sharing their story and they're at a different stage of healing. And I actually think that those types of videos probably get more donations and more people to act because they see you crying. And I'm just like not like that because I'm just at a little bit different of a stage. But
and you're not like it just I don't know you, but I have a I have a sense
you know
of
me
people.
now.
I know you now. But the thing is, I think there's like I agree, I get it. Like maybe it's just not as emotional. Maybe there is like when you go through really hard times, like I've got a hard edge in some level, you know what I mean? Like fuck yeah, like fucking hard edge, motherfucker, like you're like fucking rights. Like I have this like fuck you mentality still. So I understand, but I also have the craziest, deepest empathy mixed in, but that shadow still stays. And so I can understand that feeling of like, yeah, that's just how it is. But there's also that hardness that I think over time, Jeweliet, like I've been finding that my hardness, even though I've got this fuck you kind of attitude, which I kind of like, it actually becomes softer and softer. And it's funny because I'm married to my wife who's like, the last thing, oh my goodness, I say fuck and it's like earthquake just happened. I'm like, I'm sorry, it's just part of what I do. And I'm like, so she's been a real amazing person but I feel like I understand healing and I understand that there's a residue left over from being so fucked up in the past. And I think that's just part of who we are. And that's where the misunderstanding might come in too. And I think over time we develop and change. And I think that's why it's like, we just got to let people be where they're at. You know what I mean? I just think that I think that it's easy to share and ignore the hate when someone, for example, my wife is like, I love this girl. Oh my goodness. And she has a deep passion to help kids. And she's almost like, it feels like she found a tribe within seconds of meeting you. It's like, hey, and so these are I always say we're on a journey to find our tribe members. And that's kind of what I think that I love that you're so just being you. I think that's better than you trying to curb it. I think you'll get people that are wanting you to curb it then.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So I have a feeling you have something to say about that.
Yeah. I mean, like, I mean, like I've given a lot of talks I remember several times I was like going to give a business presentation, but recently this video of mine of me had like gone viral telling people on like Instagram and YouTube about my story, like little clips of it. People like took this big long video I did and broke it up into clips and then like made it viral. And so I was like going to give this business presentation, actually several. And it was supposed to be just about like grow your business. Yeah. And the guy came up to me and he was like, hey, can you actually just like share your story? I think that'd be so much more valuable.
Awesome.
So for me, I was like, fuck yeah, that sounds great. Cause I want to tell people about this. Cause like I want to raise.
It means so much. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not because like I want people to know where I come from. Like, I don't give a shit. It's because like I want to raise money and I want to help more kids. Help the kids. Yeah. And so I remember, but then he goes, yeah, but I just like some of those details, I just need you to like leave out because it's like a little uncomfortable. And he was like, it's uncomfortable. I'm like, oh, is it uncomfortable for you? Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I did. I just like, I just like deadpan stared. I was like, oh, is it uncomfortable? Yeah. He's like, oh, shit. I can imagine that my abuse and my torture is uncomfortable for you. Wow. So yeah, either I can give the talk as the talk is, or I can not talk at all. It's up to you.
Good for you.
And I get that a lot. I mean, it is, and even on this podcast, true, I filtered some of those details because it's like people don't know what they signed up for when they're like, oh, Jeweliet, this like young looking chick. Like they're not ready for all of that, and that's okay. But yeah, I get a lot of people that want to like filter it or make it something that it's not, and it's like either you tell the story like it is and you get the real picture, or we shouldn't be telling it at all, because otherwise people get the wrong idea and never take action because they're just like, oh, it was just a little bit of abuse, no big deal. And you're like, well, actually, it's a little bit different than that. A little bit
more than that. So let's talk about We Rescue Kids. Because a lot of people won't listen to the end of podcasts, and I want to make sure that we get that in there. That's your mission. Why don't you soapbox it right now? Like, let's get on there and let's do this. Let's take a few minutes. What is it? What are you doing? What's the mission? How can people help?
Yeah, so We Rescue Kids is a brand new organization we literally launched last week. But the purpose of it is to rescue and rehabilitate kids that have been affected by sexual abuse. So there's a few stages of this. Number one is identify a child who is being sexually abused. We do that by a number of ways. We have a text helpline. We've also, just like from my story going viral and other partners, we get a lot of a crazy amount that it's like enough to make me emotional on this podcast. So many kids like messaging us about their abuse.
Wow, love that so much.
An astonishing amount, and almost every single one ends the same way. Like, how did you end it? What did you do? Can you help me?
Holy crap!
And I'm like, I'm so sorry. Like, I can't. Or I haven't been able to. And so the first thing is to identify the child that is being sexually abused. The next thing is to partner with, we have people on our legal team who can work with these kids, who you have to like basically collect a lot of evidence to prove that the kid is being abused, which I think is a whole nother thing. I won't digress, but it's bullshit. So they work with like our lawyers to prove that they're being sexually abused and be released from their violent home or their situation. Or we'll partner with other nonprofits, very similar to OUR. We haven't partnered with them yet, but like Operation Underground Railroad does like military operations, or we'll partner with law enforcement and we'll say, hey, this kid's being abused. We have the proof. We have the warrant from the judge, or however it works, right? And they will go in and they'll rescue the child. Now, there's a lot of organizations that help with this and that do the rescuing. There's obviously CPS and law enforcement. There needs to be more because there's just like not enough, and there's so many more kids that are being abused. But the feedback that we've always gotten is like, hey, you could start another charity to help rescue these kids, but we don't have anywhere to put them that's safe. Because what happens is like, I can rescue a kid from sexual abuse, and then they're going straight into foster care, which, by the way, is probably the biggest scam in America. It's like highly exploited. It's very corrupt. I don't know if it's corrupt all the way to the top, but it's definitely on a minute level, like house to house, it's a very corrupt system and everybody knows it. And so then the feedback that we've gotten is we have nowhere to put these kids. Well, I'm like, okay, do you know how shitty it is to be like a kid that's been sexually abused? And then they're tossed into a house where nobody knows you, nobody gives a shit about you. You're going to bounce around for the next 18 years till you turn 18. It's like, that's crappy. And then you never get mental health support. And then what happens is a lot of these kids become depressed, suicidal. Some of them even succeed, unfortunately, in committing suicide. They end up in jail. They go different really bad routes, and it's not even their fault. It's because they were abused, and then they didn't get the help they needed. So we decided that we wanted to open up a bajillion, is an approximation, safe homes where these kids can come and they'll live with us and they'll rehabilitate. So we've worked with mental health professionals, trauma-informed professionals, everything we needed to do to create a program where these kids will come, they'll get therapy, they'll get everything they need to mentally and physically rehabilitate. They'll also obviously get food, love, they'll be taken care of, and they'll have as close to a family structure as possible.
So is it almost like fostering in a way?
Sort of. It is, but I'd like to think it's like fostering with more checks and balances and better.
Almost like private fostering versus government fostering. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, it would.
I think it's cool because it's almost like adoption in a way. Interesting.
Yep. And then what happens after that kid is in our facilities, they might be there, and this is all mandated by the state after this, is like, is the kid there for a month or 18 years? If the kid qualifies, though, we will put them into our adoption program, and we'll start to try to get that kid adopted by a long-term loving family, because that's the goal, right? If you've been abused at like 6 or 7, or like your mom sold you to a man to pay rent, which is also common, and you were 4 years old or 6 years old at the time, well, we want you to find a loving family. Like, we want you to go on and thrive. So if they qualify, which again is mandated by the state, they'll go into the adoption program, hopefully get adopted, and they'll go on. Otherwise, they'll just live in our, homes until they turn 18. And then we've partnered with, obviously, organizations after they turn 18, because sometimes you're 18 and you're still not quite ready to be out there on your own.
That's amazing what you're doing. Amazing. And it's weird because people love giving donations to MS, cancer, but when you say sexual abuse, the people that donate are the people that got abused. Other than that, like I know, because I know a girl named Gloria Meldrin. I don't know if you know her, but I have to connect you. She runs she's the first ever in Canada sexual abuse ranch for kids to heal them. Wow. I have to connect you. It's called it's the Be Brave Ranch. And she's right here in my town. So it's just a local, and she's like, you guys would be connectable. She's an amazing Canadian connection for you. So I'm going to connect you guys, but it's like, that's why I know a little bit about it, because raising money for sexual abuse, like I in my real estate company, what I did with my team is I did the donations to that one time, and it was weird. Like, it's almost weird. It's like, oh, a sexual abuse thing. Oh, okay. It's almost like, I don't know what it is, but it's not a popular donation unless you've been abused. And it's almost like I grew up in a religious world where sex was something we don't talk about. So even not sexual abuse, the word sex is such a like weird thing. Oh, we don't talk about that.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's private. And they don't mean anything bad. It's just that there's so much shame around sex. I think that's why it's tough. Like, I love that you're pioneering, but pioneering have to make roads, and they got to cut down trees, and it's going to be easier for the next generation. It feels like that's what your mission is. It's like, you got to shift who's going to start, because that's a hard part. I love what you're doing. I love it.
Yeah, and in our longest term goal is like to actually change legislation in the US and hopefully create like global initiatives, which is like, this is how you handle a child who's been sexually abused. This is how you handle a child that's orphaned. This is where they go. This is how much money needs to be spent, or like a percentage of your funding. This is how many CPS workers per child. Like, we want to change everything about the way that the system works so that it can no longer be exploited, because it's one thing to rescue these kids, but that's a reactive measure. What we need to do is stop it from happening altogether. So we have big, lofty goals, but you're so fucking right. It's like, people donate to cancer, I think, because they have it's more personally affected. Like, a lot of people have been affected by cancer. It's like your great, great, great aunt that you've never met, but you still feel that pull.
And it's public though.
Yeah. And also there's like that fear that it might happen to you too. So it's like, you might donate, like, oh, my aunt has cancer, so I'm going to donate $20 today because I don't want to get it too. And I just want to like help that. Whereas like sexual abuse, nobody even talks about it. So it's like, you don't even know how big of a problem it is. You don't know how many people in your family have been affected by it. B, most people don't walk around, unless you've been sexually assaulted, afraid of being sexually assaulted in the future. So they don't have that like theme. And then definitely the last one, which is like just using the word sex, like there's so much shame about it. It's crazy to me. We've actually like had to do really weird marketing to like bury the lead, so to speak, which is something I actually learned from Steve, who connected us. But bury the lead, so you have to like throw an event which is just fun, and it's not like, hey, this event is to raise money for sexually abused kids. It's more like, hey, this is an event, come. And then they come, and then they don't really have to hear about it or know, but that money is being used to help sexually abused kids. Because if you tell them straight up, like if you were to title this talk, listen to Jeweliet's story about sexual abuse, no one's going to click it. Like, nobody wants to hear that.
The niche is it's a very, very tiny little market, right? Of people that actually, it's going to be people that have been abused, probably.
Yep.
You know, so let's talk. I think, so where's the best way to connect there? Is it, I see you got a hashtag, right, as well? Hashtag.
So it's actually called hashtag We Rescue Kids, just so that it's really easy to find on social media. But the website is just werescuekids.org.
Okay, cool. Very cool. So what an amazing story.
Thank you.
We could stop it right there, but I don't want to stop yet. So I want to get to know you a little bit more. There's a whole lot more to you than this massive vision that you have. There's a whole lot more, and you're a businesswoman.
I am.
And that's pretty crazy. By the way, when I Googled you, I'm like, I'm like, first of all, I don't know if children can run business. I'm looking at your face and I'm like, she looks about, I don't know, maybe 15. I'm
Yeah.
like, so I had to Google a few more. I'm like, no,
So
she
funny.
looks like a doll. And I'm like, and then then I listened to you and you're like, mother effer, son of a bitch. I'm like, okay, I get it now. So you've got, anyways,
It's
I thought it was funny,
hilarious.
but you're a businesswoman.
I am. Yeah.
So
Surprise.
let's yeah, and let's talk about that. I think because my audience is a mixture of all kinds of people, but I definitely bend toward business and personal growth. Those are the two things in this world that I live and breathe. And
Yeah.
let's talk about that. Give me your how'd you go from having this unbelievable traumatic beginning to where are you at right now with business?
Good question. Yeah. So, I'll summarize it. So, when I was just about to turn 15, it was like literally 4 days before, my mom passed away really suddenly. And she was pretty much the only family I had. I had 3 other siblings, but they were significantly older, 7, 14, and I think like 20 years older than me. So we weren't super tight, or close. And then all of my other family members, like aunts, uncles, never really brought me into the fold. They'd see me at Christmas and they'd like pat me on the back, but like no one really knew me. I was so young. And my mom was in her 50s when she adopted a 6-year-old. So they were all kind of like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So when she passed away, she was really my only family. And so I was in a spot where it's like I didn't have anybody after that. So I bounced around and I lived with like a friend. I lived with my aunt for a little while. None of it was working out. Like my mom raised me to be very independent. She taught me how to pay taxes. She taught me how to pay bills. I spent all my time taking care of her because she was sick my entire life. Wow. So I got adopted, and then I spent my weekends, instead of playing with friends, taking care of her, making sure she's okay. And I was happy to do it because look, that's a huge step up, right? Like I was good. I was
100%.
like, yeah, for sure. So she raised me to be very independent, and then she passed away. And then I went to live with these other people, but they didn't understand that I was a very independent kid.
Oh yeah, so they just treated you like a child.
Yeah, they treated me like a kid, and I was like 15, 16, which, in my view, like that's very old. Like to me, I've always just was like, I'm 16. Everyone's like, you're so young. I'm like, that's so old. Like you should be able to like take care of yourself by that age.
I totally get it.
And and I could, and no one would listen to me. And they were also hyper religious and throwing things down my throat that I just like one guy was like, or one family that I lived with was like, you have to go to church. You can't live here. And I'm like, look, I'm sorry, but I can't go to your church. Like, I just don't like, I can't, like the level of hatred and like views that they have and judgment that they spew. Like I can't go there.
Yeah.
So I woke up and I was like, fuck this, I want to get my own apartment. And I mean, I was like 16 and I was like, everyone was like, you can't, you have to be 18. And I found some legal loopholes and on Google.
Smarty.
And I was like, you want to bet? And I just like Googled it. And I mean, granted, I got the world's crappiest apartment because I was in college. I went to college early and I was working at a retirement home as a waitress. So I got like a really shitty apartment that I can afford. I think the rent was like $200 a month or something, and it was just bad. Like but closet. I lived, yeah. No, actually, it was like a pretty good size. It was like a 1 bedroom.
That's not a bad deal. 200.
It was just, but it was like bad. Yeah. And anyways, so yeah, I lived there and I was proud of it. I lived alone. I didn't have any roommates, and I was, doing pretty okay and going to college and working this job. And then one day this old man, he has Alzheimer's, so it's not that I'm mad at him, but this was like a wake-up call. He pinched my ass. And then I was like, damn, I remember turning around. I was so furious. I was like, what the fuck? Like, who just touched my ass? And he was just like laughing and laughing and laughing. And I just like, right then and there was like, I can't do this anymore. Like I'd been working this job, I think 8 months, living alone for about the same amount of time. So it's not like I'd been like old and jaded and doing this for years. It's like 8 months and it was done. So I literally quit my job the next day because I just decided like I wanted to be more successful. I knew I wanted more out of life. I didn't want to work this job. I wasn't happy. And I was just like, I don't think my mom would be proud of me right now. And so quit my job, went on Google again and was like, how to make money online. And, a bunch of stuff popped up, and I couldn't get anyone to even pay me like $20 to like write something for them on Upwork. Like no one would hire me because I obviously looked young. I had no experience. I was an asshole. I still am. So it's like all these things were kind of working against me until I saw this like one lady. She was like, how to optimize your LinkedIn. And I was like, okay. So I did it. And then 2 weeks later, this company in France messages me. They asked me to do some content for them for a pretty decent amount of money. And that was because I spoke both English and French. That was the kickoff. That was like a very low end client.
How old were you at that point?
16.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was my first client. It was very low end. I was just writing things in English, writing things in French done. But they connected me. They saw the quality of my writing. They saw my hunger, the dedication that I had, everything. So they started connecting me. I worked my way up from like writer to editor to marketing. And then moved around to other companies in France. And this was how I started my career. And I was in marketing, so people would hire me for branding projects. They would hire me for any sort of like marketing help that they needed. Usually it was more of like a managerial, like I'd come in and I would manage your team and I would kind of like fix it. I'd fix your marketing problems and then I would leave.
Yeah.
That was really easy in France because there's not a whole lot of competition. So there's not a whole lot of like agency style things as there is in the US.
Yeah, tons.
So I did that. And by the time I was 20, I was a millionaire. I was really proud of that. I set the goal when I was 16. I was like, 4 years. By the time I'm 20, I'm going to be a millionaire. And I was like, why? Because right before my mom died, I told her I was going to be on Forbes 30 under 30, which I have not hit yet. But I was like,
How old are you?
23.
Lots of time.
Yeah, but I was like, you know what's going to get me on that list is being a millionaire by 20. And I was.
Nice.
And I nailed it. I just don't think I had like the PR, the namesake, and I just I don't even know how to get on that list. But so yeah, I did really well financially, then started coaching here in the US because people were like, how did you do it? And played that bullshit coaching consulting game here, which I really hate now, just what the industry has become.
Totally, yeah.
So I've done that for like 18 months or so. Had a coaching course. People would pay money. I teach them what I knew, and then they'd make money and they'd leave, right? Quit that because I hated it. And now what I do is acquisition consulting. So it's what I've been doing in France for years, but am now doing it in the US as well. So we have a Paris office, and then we also have a San Diego office. And to summarize it, because this is where it gets a little bit boring for people, is acquisition consulting basically is like a company that wants to sell 3 to 5, 10 years. And you need to start thinking strategically about how to do that and how to grow your company so that by the end of it, it's appealing to a buyer.
And do you do that through the social media to marketing side of things, or do you do it through so you're building you're building the external brand, you're getting the messaging right, and you're putting it together so it looks like a very appealing purchase, is raising the value that way, right? A lot of companies that's their whole, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of like cool ways.
I'm sure there's more to it than that, but help me understand.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool ways to like increase your valuation. Most of the time we're working with companies that are 7, 8, sometimes even 9-figure companies that want to usually not go public because that's not a specialty, but definitely want to sell or like exit or do some sort of like major restructuring inside their business.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where we come in, and that's our specialty now. So that's been me. And then, like I said, last week I launched the charity, and that's what I do. And
that's what you do. You're in San Diego, which is beautiful.
It is.
It's beautiful. And so we've got a common, do we call him a friend? Like, I'm not sure. Like, Steve Sims. So
I'd like to think he's a friend.
Yeah. I like giving him shit. He's
watch him comment, be like, I'm not friends with either one of these.
You'll see it. Well, no, you got to give him shit. You got to keep him in line. So let's play around here because Steve's the one who connected us. So let's put a little Steve Sims on the show here. So
let's do it.
So who would you say that Steve Sims should not work with? Who should Steve Sims not work with?
Anyone sensitive. Like if you're sensitive, do you want me to name drop or just like describe the person?
probably just describe the person. You're like, don't work with that guy. Yeah, piece of me wants to name drop, trust me, but we better not.
Yeah,
like I'm just thinking, you know, like who shouldn't work with Steve? It's a different way to say.
I someone who's sensitive. Like if you like someone gives you feedback on something and they're really blunt and they don't, most of the time when you give feedback, you compliment and then you lead them into the feedback or negativity.
Yeah.
Not Steve. He's just like, yeah, that was crap. This is what needs to be fixed. So if you're sensitive, which is something that most people will never admit to. But yeah, he's not the one for you. If you move slow, Steve also goes really, really fast. He talks fast. His meetings, like he'll be like, yeah, let's get on the phone, and you'll like budget an hour and you're done in 15 minutes. Like if you take a while to like comprehend mentally, so it's like you have to like hear it and then think about it for a few days and then like understand it. If that's how you learn, he's not the one for you. He just goes a million miles an hour. I mean, he's a race car or a motorcycle racer, right? So he just like goes a million miles an hour. But like you, he has this lovely wife and this lovely, I don't know if you have a dog, but his dog is amazing as well. So those might be perks.
That's the real reason you work with him, is his wife and his dog. Let's get real about it right now. So no, I love Steve. I went to jail. I think you also did as well. I did. I met him through another mentor of mine, Phil McKernan, and he's been on my show a few times, and I've been down into California there in his world in the jail. So what I always do, I've just got a funny question I always ask people. I always say, if you were to build a scratch and sniff sticker, okay, what would be the picture and what would be the smell?
I think the picture would definitely be an alpaca, and the smell, I like the smell of like tropical rainforest, you know, like just like really naturey vibes, but probably definitely an alpaca. Oh, do you have one?
Do I have an alpaca?
Yeah.
No, I don't have an alpaca.
Your wife said that, no, I want one, but your wife said you had a lot of animals. It's like, look, if they have an alpaca, then they're my best friends.
It's like that was a trick question. Okay, so here's the thing. You want to level up with me? You got to. You know what? The problem is, I think you probably shouldn't talk to Renee anymore because she's going to own a mother effing alpaca. She comes home with animals. I'm like, she's a total empath. I'm not joking. I'm like,
she literally told me that.
She's like, why'd you buy a gerbil again? I'm like, the stupid thing. Now we got 2 dogs. We got cats. We got like birds. I'm not joking. And I was always complaining about it until I kind of liked it.
Yeah.
And then she's like, see? I'm like, yeah, they're pretty cool.
Here's the thing about alpacas is they mate really weird. Like their mating rituals are just like really fascinating. But like more than that, the reason why you want one is they fucking run. Like they hop, but they're like really tall legs.
I don't want one.
You definitely do.
There's like you sound like you're an influencer. You sound like you're probably good at sales. Not a chance.
You do.
You could do. My wife will be buying one with it. Like she's like, she likes you so much. She's gonna be like, Ben, I talked to Jeweliet, got myself an alpaca. It's been my life. I'm not even joking. So
that's amazing.
So, okay, here's a couple more questions. I think you've got a lot of wisdom, and I think, like, I had a guy in the show once that was served a lot of time in prison, and I asked him for advice on raising kids. Like, I like to get advice from people that have way different stories, because I think we get, like, the advice is all the same, and I like to get real deal. So, and not just kids and stuff. So I want to ask you some advice. Is that okay?
Sure. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So, first of all, we'll go real deep quick first.
Ooh.
So if you run into yourself at 12 years old, what's the advice you're giving her?
12-year-old Jeweliet. I was a really mean kid. So 12-year-old, I think, I think the biggest piece of advice I would give myself is to love and trust my mom. It took me many, many years. I think I started to love and trust her probably about like 14, and then she died like a year later. So I think I would have like gone and told myself to love and trust her and let her in a little bit more. And she still died and never really knew my story. And that's a big regret for me, because I think I saw the relationship she had with my older sister, and I just wanted that so bad, but like I couldn't get there. Not until I was like 14 or 15. So the advice I would give it would have been to let her in more and to love and trust and just like let go of that fear that like someone's out to get you, and that, you know, I had this like irrational fear that every time I got in trouble, she was going to send me back to foster care, which she would never do, and you can't even legally do that. But yeah, I would have liked to have let go of all that baggage a little bit earlier and had a few more core years with her, because I feel I only got 10 years with this woman who literally is one of the best people I've ever met.
Saved you, yeah.
She did. But I would have liked a few more years. Like, for example, there's just some things that moms have to teach you that she didn't get a chance to because I was so guarded and going through my own bullshit. And I mean, it's hard to tell a 12-year-old to get over their shit, but I would like to tell my 12-year-old self to get over my shit.
Jeweliet, you really hit me home there over the last while. Like, you know, personal growth is really weird. Like I feel like I just go into layers, and then the more personal growth you do, the more you realize you're got problems. And it's kind of one of those things. And lately I've been kind of going through that too, realizing like I've come through a lot in my life. And so I can relate to a lot of the stuff. But the trust thing's really interesting. It's because, so how do you, like, I still wrestle with that. Like people, if unless I admit it, no one really knows because I seem pretty great. But in deep down, I still have that. I lived on the streets. I've been beaten up on every level. My whole life has been a war. And so it's weird. Like even sitting in a restaurant, sometimes it'll cross my path where I have my back to the wall, and it's all subconscious. And sometimes, it's like I look at relationships not as relationships. I look as are they safe or not? And I think that you might understand me.
I do.
And so my question as a person, like I'm gonna work. I'm living. I feel like I've won life already. But there's something that's come up. It's like, wow, I still really don't trust. And it definitely lately been seeing how I look at safety as in relationships. And when you described like I can't open up or else, I definitely ran into that in my own self. So how would you? It's cool talking to you about this because you get it. I know you do. So how do you work through that? How would you, and do you still wrestle with that as well?
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably not a great person to ask. I think I'm healed.
That's why I ask you, just so you know.
I think I'm healed on most levels. Like I don't hold resentment. I don't have a pity party. I, for the most part, don't have a lot of fear. Like I still have like weird stalkers or like things that'll like happen to me that's like really crazy. So I kind of have that like on edge just all the time.
Like ready.
Yeah. I also have ADD, so that's just like always running.
Too.
Yeah.
I get it.
In terms of trust, yeah, man, I like my natural instinct, it doesn't matter what someone says to me, I just automatically assume they're lying. Like it doesn't, like they could be like, my favorite color is red. And in my head, I'm like,
is it
really? Like
it's Jeweliet. That's my programming too. Because it's like,
thank you for letting me know. Cause I'm like, it's like stupid shit. Like, why would you lie about that?
I'm embarrassed to talk about it. That's why I talk about it. Cause I'm like, I look at everyone, I'm like, so how are you going to fuck me? Like, it's like, why am I doing this? Like and it's like, it's irrational, but I call it my shadow. And I'm like, in one way it keeps me safe and it serves me, but in another way it keeps me alone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think for me too, like I had a lot of like, even without the sexual abuse history, like let's just look at my business life alone. Like a significant portion of men that do business with me get very inappropriate really fast, or they will pay money and then you'll like very quickly after they pay you. And again, we're like 6 and 7 figure like clients, right? So people are paying us like sometimes millions of dollars. So you feel like this level of like responsibility. Someone just handed you a check for $5 million, but you'll very quickly like go into meetings and I'll just be like, oh, I'm not here for the reason why I thought I was here. Am I? Like instantly, like it's just like a walk into a meeting room or like get on a Zoom call. It's just like the way they're sitting. And I'm like, oh God.
Yeah, I
know that you're here because at some point in this conversation, you're going to casually ask me if I'm single, and then you're going to casually ask if we should get drinks, and then casually ask if we should fuck.
Yeah, disgusting, hey?
And people are like, well, you should just work with married men. And I'm like, look, those are the worst, actually.
Yeah, it's different for guys and girls too, right?
So even like take out the sexual abuse, so many women in business like deal with the same shit, and they're just like so tired of it. Like I'm not gonna play the woe is me. I'm not gonna stop being in business.
Totally.
I don't give a shit. Like if some guy wants to, you know, try me, like I don't care, right? And sometimes they do it in a respectful way, and you're just like, and you're just like, I'm not interested, but thanks. But add in like the sexual abuse, like my thought is just always, I have this programming for so many years that like my one purpose in life was to be a sex object to men. And so as you can imagine, like dating in my teens, and then even now, not so much now, but for many years, like just kind of like sought out the type of men that would want to date me only because I was attractive, or they wanted to have sex with me. So there was like, I always have that going through my head. Anytime I meet a dude, I'm just like, oh God, Jesus. Like why are we really friends? Like, what do you
it's hard to know, right?
What do you really want from me? Wow. Can I really like get drunk at this bar with you and then be safe? You know what I mean? Like it's always kind of like there in my head. Even like chicks though, like it doesn't even matter what people say to me. It's just like my thought is just like, I think you're lying. And I would say I'm pretty good at telling when people are lying, but it's just my first instinct. So honestly, I don't have any advice, because it's still to this day is like almost every word that comes out of someone's mouth, I'm just very hesitant to accept.
Jeweliet, it's funny. It's funny because, so I think, first of all, I think about someone listening right now that can't have the bravery that we're putting on the table to put it out there that, there's some trust going on. There's like, I still feel, I don't feel safe. And I think that's really exciting to think about, inspiring. But the other side of it, it's kind of a superpower in some level, because I can see into someone's heart instantly. And now I can help people wake up. I can help people like legitimately overcome their shit at all. Like that's just what I do on a daily basis. And it's like, it's the coolest thing ever. So I know there's this, so what we're talking about is a shadow. It's not the main game anymore. You know, is that how you feel?
Yeah, I definitely do. I think it's like something where I notice the thought come into my brain, and I meditate a lot. So it's like, meditation has helped me massively, but I'll notice the thought come into my brain about like, I don't know if I trust this person or what they've said, but I'll overcome it, and I'll be like, my mom always had a saying, like, I trust you until you give me a reason not to. And when I was a kid, I was like, that's the stupidest thing ever.
Why would you ever do that? That's dumb. You're going to get screwed.
Right. And then as an adult, I try to give people the benefit of the doubt. Like I try to assume the best. I'm just like, look, they might have done something that seems a little shady, but I'm going to assume it was either on accident, or assume, which is usually the case, that I don't have all the information and I'm jumping to conclusions without knowing everything. So like, it's really easy to look at someone's actions and be like, oh, they're a bad person, or they did this, and assume why they did it, or assume things about their character. But really, most of the time, you don't have the information. And I think with social media and society nowadays, like our number one weakness is how quickly we jump to conclusions and make judgments when we don't have any of the information that we need to do so. And so I notice these thoughts come in, and I just generally try to give people the benefit of the doubt and say, hey, I'm going to assume that you meant the best here and that you're a good person. And usually that serves me pretty well, but that shadow self sticks around, and that does keep me safe, because at any point someone does start to actually do something where it breaks my trust, or that is legitimately sketchy or weird, my shadow self, as you called it, will like speak up and be like, this is odd, and you need to get out of this situation, whether it's like safety or business. Like I've been in a lot of business deals.
It's like a cool intuitional, there's a good side effect. It's like, because of what you've gone through, you have this like weird intuition. That's how I look at it. Like it's just like so here's another question here. Finish the sentence. I wish parents would
raise their kids to be more independent.
Yes.
At a younger age.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that.
I love that so much. It's just because obviously it aligns to what I like, but I love it. It's like, I let my kids do whatever they want. And I really do. Like, I'm like, so what are you going to do? But I can love them.
Yeah.
Like they love, and I'm like, we're the people at the playground that all the scared parents hate. We're like, go for it. Jump up there, go do it. And all the parents are like, oh my goodness, don't do that. I'm like, go. Yeah. It's like, don't watch that. Don't do this. And it's, I was raised like that. So I'm like, nope. It did nothing but creates judgment, to be honest.
Listen to this. Did you know that the average quote unquote kid doesn't leave home until they're 23? I've created multiple eight-figure businesses. I've donated millions of dollars. I've hopefully impacted millions of lives. I was living alone by 16. And it wasn't hard at 16. I didn't feel like, oh man, this is a hard knock life.
Yeah.
I was like, fuck yeah, I'm 16 and my friends like can't even drive a car without getting grounded. And I have my own place. Like I felt amazing. There's no pity in that. But the average kid doesn't leave home till 23 is old.
Well,
you're so
just,
old.
the whole nation's culture will be affected. Yeah. But you know what I mean? 100%. Like my son's already planning. He's 16 years old and he's like, yeah, I'm thinking about moving out with my couple buddies. I'm like, gotcha, man. Let's go. I said, but you probably want to learn how to run a budget.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, run a budget. It's like, go for it. Like do whatever you want is how I'm raising my kids. But the only rule I say is listen to the little voice in your gut and trust it. I said, if it makes you, if what you're going to do makes you really feel bad, or if you have hesitations, I said, don't do nothing until you check that out first. I said, and just because eventually they can't, I'm not going to tell them what to do. They got to figure it out. That's awesome, Jeweliet. I love that answer. You're the only one that's probably ever said that. Make them really independent.
What's the most common answer you get for that?
I don't know. I know people have all kinds of advice, right? Listen to the kids and like stuff like that. You know what I mean?
That's bad advice.
No, but it's, yeah. Don't listen.
Mine was better. Mine was a better answer.
A little competitive, are you? So how about? Yeah, it's awesome. Another question would be, what advice would you give? Now I'll have to give some context to this. Let's say this. So I guess let me lay the groundwork here. For a long time, I've coached all kinds of different companies. I've really niched out into real estate, and it's a really gross world. Okay. So I almost didn't want to do it. And because I'm not a fit. Okay. So for a long time, I had to work that out in myself because I'm like, I don't fit. I'm like, I'll show you how to make a lot of money, but I don't give a shit if you make money. That's the problem. So I had this weird problem. And every other guy out there is just, here, this is what you do. Do you want to be a superhero? Do what I do. And everything wants to make me puke. But then I realized, oh shit, it's perfect. I help you get out of your own way. And it's the best industry to actually be doing this in, because everyone is so full of, chasing meaningless awards and stuff like that. So I've seen massive results by just working on the human behind the business. And that's literally what I do. Yep. And so with that said, I think about social media. I think about, like, I've got funnels, I've got different things going too, but like, there's these people who are hunting, right? What advice would you give a business owner today that's building a business in this day and age? Like, I know it's a very vague question, but maybe it's too vague, but we can go for it. We'll see where it goes.
Okay. So a couple things that I want to say before I answer that. Well, one thing is that I'm with you on working on the person behind the business, because I was a coach for a couple years, and I would have clients that would come in and get massive results really fast, blow it out of the water. Then I'd get other clients that didn't. And then
Same system, right?
It was easy to be like, they didn't implement, which is true some of the time. Yes. But then I have maybe, and these are the ones that haunt me, because I think about this. This is like the psychology question that floats around in my brain forever. It's like the person comes in, they have a legit offer. I know, because I validated it. I'm just kidding. But they have a legit offer, a legit business. Yeah. Other people with the same niche have succeeded, right? So it's like in my course. So it's
got proof of concept for sure. Yeah.
And they're doing the work. Like, I'm checking. Like, they're doing they're doing all the marketing. They're doing everything, but they still don't get results. Like, I've seen, and there's only like 6 of them, but like I've seen people that do everything they're supposed to do and never nail it.
So
and I'm like,
so why what happens? Like, what's your, let's hear it.
Me, this haunts me. Like I'm laughing because you aren't going to believe me, but I think about this like every day. Like the part of psychology, the only answer, right? Cause I'm a super logical person. The only possible, if you have 2 identical businesses, basically identical people, that have same marketing, same everything, same system, same level of opportunity, same everything, right? And they're all doing the work, but one person gets results and the other person doesn't. The only thing that's different is like the brain, like you said, the person behind the business.
Behind it,
it has to be like some sort of mental block, energy block, something. I can't nail it for sure, but it has to be something to do with like that person's internal processing structure, the way that they're set up. And I think that block is different for everybody, but it's definitely like an internal thing. And what I would say is, like, if anyone's listening to this and you are in a position where you're like, man, I've done the courses and I've literally executed every single one and I'm still not getting results, stop blaming the coaches and stop blaming the courses and stop like shitting on people and be like, this course was trash. Like, you need to look at yourself, man. Like, you gotta like really, like, now you've done the courses, that's great. Why don't you go invest into some mindset or some therapy, because clearly that's the last domino. And once you get that out of the way, like, you're home free and you're going to be super wealthy and you're going to be super happy and it's going to be great. But like, you've got to clear that block. And the only answer I could come up with is like internal.
Love it. That's kind of, that came to the same conclusion after helping people. And I'm like, I realized very quickly, I'm like, yeah, I'm teaching you things that you could Google. Really.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why are you? And then, so I'm kind of on a mission. You should see my ad I got running. It's a used car salesman.
I think I have seen your ads before.
It just, and I go, I'm going to sell you something. I'm glad you got caught in my algorithm. I'm just going to sell you. You need to trust me. You need to trust me. I'm going to make you millions. And then I take it all off and I show that I'm on a green screen. And I'm like, guys, it's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. So I kind of undermining the reason why you're not doing that as much, you said. And that's why, because so I'm like being the anti coach in a way. And it's like, you got to work on yourself or else it's really a waste of time doing strategies and because it's not going to work. I always say it's like a race car. You build the race car, but you still have to know how to drive.
Yeah. Or the opposite will happen, which would be like, you might get a lot of success and it works, but you're miserable or you're unhappy. So the first piece of advice would be like, work on yourself. Even if you're making money and you feel like you're succeeding, just go to therapy, get mindset help, but do it from someone that inspires you. And I mean, from someone that you feel like you relate, that understands you and that you're going to listen to, that you respect. And if you're doing that, then the last piece of advice that I would give that I didn't really realize until this year was like, about 8 months ago, I got really, really sick and the doctor was like, hey man, you might not even make it, in a couple of years. And I was like, okay. Like, no problem. But I looked around and I realized I was like making buckets of money, just like insane amounts of money. And it was great. But I looked around and I'm like, oh shit, I'm sick. And now I'm lonely. I don't have a lot of friends because I haven't left my house in 6 years. I've just like worked and worked and worked because Gary Vee and Grant Cardone and everyone like in the coaching business space, entrepreneurship, it's like this like sex appeal of getting up at 4 a.m. and working 12-hour days. And if you don't, then you're a failure and you don't want it bad enough.
You're missing out. You're losing the race. Yeah.
Yeah. And they shame you for it. And they're like, you just don't want it bad enough. You're not a real entrepreneur. And you know what? I do think that hard work is important. And I think, that's going to get you where you want to be. But I think I did the opposite, was work too hard for too many years. And I had a lot of money. So let's get that straight. Like, it worked. I was very wealthy, but I was like lonely and I was like, okay, cool. Like when I heard I was sick, my first thought was like, oh, no problem. I'm just going to go and enjoy my life for a bit then. Like, like if I'm sick and there's not a whole lot I can do about it, like I'm just going to spend the next couple of years traveling. I was like, let me call up my friends and this is going to be great. And I realized, got on my phone, I was like, I don't have any fucking friends to call right now.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And so I think what we do is people set arbitrary business numbers because it sounds good. They're like, I want to make $1 million this year.
And they pick $1 million,
They always pick $1 million, and then they always pick 10 million. Does anyone even know what $1 million can buy you? I do. And let me tell you, it's not very much. Or it could be a lot more than you imagine. But we pick these numbers because they sound good, not because of like what those numbers actually mean. Yep. And then we build a business. We start going online and we're like, I want to make $1 million. And we're like, what's the easiest way to do it? And then you pick what everyone says is the easiest way, which is like launch a course, right? It's always launch a course or
now
an MLM.
It's getting crazy, yeah.
Yeah, or an MLM or something like that. And then you build a business because of how much money you want to make. When I think really why most people or the most successful entrepreneurs start a business is because of the impact or the difference they want to make in the world, then the money they want to make, and then the lifestyle they want to have. And most people make their goals and create a business based off of how much money, and they forget the rest. And you could wake up one day like me, and I know a lot of people like gurus, influencers. Like I know some of the most like famous quote unquote people in the coaching consulting space, like at the top that everyone knows. And I've spoken to them personally. They're like, I'm fucking miserable. Like I'm not.
So many, Jeweliet.
And they're not all nice saying it. They're doing the opposite. They're like, I'm driving my Lamborghini today and I'm so happy. And I'm like, bro, I talked to you yesterday. I know you're depressed. Like
that's exactly right, Jeweliet.
Yeah. People are lying to you. And here's the thing, look, create a business because of the lifestyle you want to have. If I was to redo it, I'd be like, look, I want to work 4 days a week and I want to do this, that, or whatever. I want to be able to buy these things and do the, so, and then I would create an income off of that. I'd been like, I want a $10 million house, and I want this, and I want that. And I would have like created
but
the
then
list.
figure out what it costs and then build a business to pay for it. That's the,
and not build a business to make money and then
to
figure out what I'm gonna
we are on the same page, Juliet. I sit down with people and it's like, I'm like one guy's like, I'm like, what do you want to do? So just a real estate agent. He's like, I want 50 transactions. I'm like, okay, cool. What are you gonna spend the money on? So why 50? Why like zero purpose? And they literally go blind for years and years and years. And if they get it, they only move is 100 deals. The only move is a higher financial goal or a new award. And it's like, you're dying. You hate yourself, your wife and you hate each other. You're not a good dad. Everything that means anything to you because of this mother effing fucking 50 deals you want. The right people are like, I'll sign up now. They're the people are like, you're not my guy.
And most of the time, like even just saying that you want to hit 50 deals, like if you don't know what you're going to spend the money on, I firmly believe it's going to be really hard for you to make that money.
You won't get it.
Like
100%.
The universe doesn't work like that. Like I won't get all hippie on you, but like you can't just be like, I want to make $1 million and then be like, go out there and try to make it with no fucking plan. Like that's not, money is energy, right? It comes and goes. It can't be stored, right? It has to be moving at all times. So if you're like, I just want to make $1 million and your plan is to store it, good fucking luck, because that's not how it works. Money is energy. You have to have a plan. Like I want to make $1 million and then 500,000 I'm going to do this with, 10% I'm going to donate because I'm a good person. And then the rest I'm going to do X, Y, Z. And that's the lifestyle I want. And you know what, if I get this lifestyle and I want a little bit more, then I'll work a little harder and I'll go into the next goal, right? But
totally. And do you know, maybe you found the same thing, but when someone gets it, like I've worked with lots of people and it's like, once they've shifted that mindset from chasing the money to building, I just say, build a life you love. I said, that's all I want to teach you how to do. Build a life you love. What happens is they make shit tons of money. And that's what I've seen. And it's funny. It's like people. I call it the back door to success. It's build the life you want. So when you get the money, you've already won the game.
Yeah. And people always ask me, they're like, Juliet, how are you a millionaire by 20 years old? And I'm like, look, I honestly, part of it's luck. I think there was also not a lot of competition in France, blah, blah, blah. I was also good at what I did. I think.
Oh, good. That's amazing. It's amazing.
I think the last part though, like the biggest thing that I would say about making money and hitting your goals is giving back. And I don't mean like just giving back your time, but I mean financially. Like by the time I was 20, I had probably donated almost $1 million. So people were like, how did you have, and I don't mean a millionaire, like I've sold $1 million worth of products. I mean, like I had a bank account and there's $1 million in it by the time I was 20. And people were like, how did you do that? And I'm like, well, probably because by the time I was 20, I'd also donated millions, at least pretty close to $1 million to charities and things that I cared about. And that's how money works, is like you make money and then you give back. You're an entrepreneur. And here's my belief is that entrepreneurs, we collectively as a group have more money and time than any other group of people on the planet. Yeah. It's true. We have more money and freedom and influence, which means that it is literally our duty to make the world a better place because we have the most money, we have the most time, we have the most influence. Like we're entrepreneurs. As a group, it's our job to use that money and time that no other group has to make the world a better place. And since I was 16, I've just been, my mom was like really big into charity and donating, and we were poor, but she was always donating, giving back. And I would say like, know what you're going to spend the money on, but also make sure that you're giving back. And I don't mean like be a millionaire and give $100 here and there. I mean like be a millionaire that gives $100,000 or $200,000, and it goes, and it always comes back to you. I promise. Like every single time, there were times where I would donate like $1,000 and then the next day I'd get like a really weird random sale for this book, right? Or this like course that I had for like $2,000. Or I would like donate 10,000 and then the next day this guy that had been on the fence for like 3 months would call and be like, hey, I'm ready to sign up. And it's like, you can't explain that shit. Like you can't make that shit up. It's
I totally get it. I even call it the luck. I actually named it the luck factor. And it's like, it's not just donating, but there's something about you, like I get lucky, and I like when I think the donation might put you into an energy that's aligned to you. Like I started doing these retreats. First of all, I didn't believe I could do them. No one would come. Did the old thing this years ago, and
I'll come to your retreat.
Yeah, well, it's called Business from Within, and it's a 1-year thing, and it's awesome. It's always sold out right now, and it's the coolest thing ever. But yeah, that'd be fun, by the way. But the thing is, So I take these guys for a year, but I was in Vancouver, and all these people were flying all over the country to come see me. And it was like this moment of euphoria, like then you go back to your very, very past and you're like,
Yeah.
holy shit, I'm like some ex-drug addict, street kid, and everyone's coming over. I'm like, I was a manipulator and I was a bad dude. And I lived on like 16, I was out of the house for a year or two too. I get it. And it's like, but the thing is, anyways, I say that because I hit this moment of alignment, and that's where I look at my alignment is that's where the donation thing can align. And it's like, and what happened was when I got home, I got 3 or 4 phone calls that I had no clue that were coming. One was to speak in Hartford. You know, it's like making thousands and thousands of dollars to come to a talk. I got a school that wanted me out of the blue. Do you want to come talk to the school? I'm like, yes, that's my heart. And it was like all these things just fell into place. And we try so hard, and I'm such a business guy, sales guy. Like you've got that shadow that you can't, but there's a weird thing. I sometimes we get what we want and we didn't try. And that's something I think about a lot. Like, it's almost like, because I can make shit happen, and that you can too. You had to. And so by having that skill, sometimes it's like setting that back, and this weird luck factor shows up that I can't explain, but that always comes from like an energy place where you're in a place of like amazing energy. I find that's the hack.
I agree. I firmly agree. And that's like the thing that no one else is talking about online, right? Because it's like, it doesn't make, for one, it's really hard to understand until you just understand it. So it's a hard concept.
Experience it.
Yeah, it's a hard concept to teach. And so people know that. They're like, well, no one's going to believe me if I tell them about their energy. So it's like they just create marketing course after marketing course after sales course after sales course. And you're just like, look, they're all the same. And they're all repeats of each other. No one has anything original to say. Like, the thing you can do to make the biggest difference in your business is for you to work on yourself, because like your marketing courses, like you're never going to buy a course that's like that unique, right? Like they're all basically the same.
It's not game changing.
The biggest competitive edge you can do is not to buy this super course that's $50,000 that no one else can afford. The best thing you can do to like change the game in your business is to work on yourself and your energy there. So
it's totally crazy. I teach a lesson in my real estate 12-week program I have. The whole entire lesson is the relationship with fear, your energy leaks, setting your compass. And of course I give them all the other stuff, but those are the ones that actually change everything.
Yeah.
You know, it's cool. It's cool. I could jam with you all day. I love it.
I know.
I really appreciate it. There's one thing I do at the end of some of my podcasts is I always like to flip the script a little bit.
Okay.
I'm here interviewing you, and I have the chance to be sitting with people, yourself one of them, and I would say, why don't you ask me a question, any question, go wherever you want, and I know you probably have some, and I say I'll answer.
That's it. That's amazing. So first of all, can I give you a compliment?
I will take a compliment.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I would just like to say, like, this is like probably one of the funnest, best podcasts I've ever been on. I've been on a few. I've done a lot of interviews, and this was like a lot of fun. You're an amazing host. And I mean, I've never been in your courses or anything. I can just tell by the way that you talk about them that you're more authentic and you know more about what you're talking about than pretty much anyone else in the industry. So I've loved my time here, and I think you're fucking amazing. And I think your wife is amazing as well. And I'll just leave you with this, but like, I definitely think you guys should still get an alpaca.
You son of a bitch. I told you I'm in trouble now. I'm
going to text her. I'm going to text her a photo of one, and then she'll definitely be sold.
Yeah. And all of my kids are going to, it's going to be a mutiny. I'm always on the outside. The kids are like, we need an alpaca. And I have an acreage too. So I got to move then. So that's my next move. I got to get out of the acreage so we don't get alpaca. But hey, anyway, thank you so much for that compliment. That means a lot to me. My only life mission is to be me fearlessly. That's the only thing I care about, and I try to put myself in uncomfortable positions. And honestly, I've no fucking clue how to do a podcast. That's just the truth. And so, but I do know that I'm interested in you. I'm interested in hearing what's going on in your life, and just meeting people and just being as real as I can. I'll let the dice fall wherever they go. Like I'll let the cards fall wherever.
Yeah, I would say, here's my question. I would say, what do you believe to be like the biggest misconception or false belief that people have about business or life? That might be kind of broad, but we'll say business.
Got any bigger questions? Let's see. So I love the question, by the way, but in my head, I got to process it. I'm an extrovert. So an extrovert talks while he thinks. So,
okay.
What is the question again? So the
biggest false belief or like misconception that people have about let's say business. Let's exclude life.
Sure.
Life is too broad,
Sure.
but just about
Yeah.
business.
I see it all the same, by the way. I think you do as well. But
Yeah.
so the biggest misconception or false belief about business. So I don't know the answer. I'll answer it this way. I think people hide in business, and it's a wonderful place to hide. Is you hide in your business, who you really are. A lot of times you build this whole infrastructure and empire around who you want to be, and it's accepted and your business, but who you fucking are is not that. And I think that when it comes down to it, and I've never answered the question like this, it's a total gut move, is I really believe people are hiding in behind business. Who they really are is who they actually, that's where life is. And I think they're dying doing business, and they don't have to. They don't have to have that. And I'm obsessed. I love business. So,
Why
and
do
I
you
do
think
think
people do that? Why do you think they hide?
Oh man, I think that we have lived in this way where we have been told what to do and what to be. Every fucking religion and every culture, women are telling men are telling fucking women how to fucking do everything. Not one person is saying, do whatever you want and trust yourself blindly. Like, you have to listen to the gut. So I think that we follow. And the other thing is this, because we don't have an influx of teaching people how to truly believe in who they are and risk being their fucking self, that what happens is you look outside of yourself for solutions, and you buy the courses, you buy these things. And then what you do is you chase people, and those people are never, ever who they say they are, ever. They're always, there's never, like, I'm not who I say I am. I try to show you that I'm not the perfect guy. I got a lot of bullshit.
Same.
And they still look at me and be like, you're a hero, but I'm not a fucking hero. I'm just a man. I yell at my kids sometimes, you know?
I'm barely holding my shit
Got me
together.
going now, Jeweliet. Yeah. So I think they hide because
amazing.
their training is that they don't, like, believe in yourself wildly.
Yeah.
Like, I just bet on your fucking self.
But you're true to self too. Like
the authentic self.
Yeah, and like, here's what I say. So like, as long as you're not hurting someone else in the process, like you said, do whatever the fuck you want to do, and be your truest self. Like, we put on such a facade to be in business, and like, I have to have the Lamborghini, but it's like, if you don't even like Lamborghinis, don't fucking buy one.
And that's the craziest thing, right? You probably don't even want it.
Like, look, I have this beautiful, like, and I do love the condo, but I bought this condo because everyone was like, I was like, this will be great for filming videos. And it's like literally on top of San Diego. Like, I can see over every single building in this city. Yeah. And I bought it because I was like, this is going to be great for like videos. And then I've been living here, and I'm like,
no videos. Yeah.
Look, I hate walking my dogs. I fucking hate it. You know what I have to do? Because I live in a condo.
You got to go down this.
My dogs.
Yeah.
And I just want to backdoor.
That's the thing. Like, what do you want is my favorite question in the world, Julie. I have it written down and be like, what do you want? It's the life question I ask myself every day, because that's the compass.
Bro.
What do I want? And then know what else I do? I say, take all your beliefs, put them on the fucking fire. Whatever burns is not yours. So I risked hell, Jeweliet. I risked hell because I grew up in a way where it was like, you're going to hell if you don't believe in Jesus, my whole life. Okay. And so I'm married to I'm married to my wife, and she's not religious, but she's definitely a Jesus follower in some level. And so for me and her to be together is kind of weird, but we've made this amazing relationship out of it because we let each other be whoever we are. But the trick was, for me to find myself, I had to risk hell. I had to put my beliefs on the fire, my own, like, we're talking, like, imagine risking hell to be me. And that's why that was the start of my journey to being myself. And
I think that's so powerful, what you just said.
Yeah. Well, what do? We ended here, Jeweliet?
I think this is a great place. Yeah.
Awesome. You know what? It's been amazing. Love the fact that I get to know you. I feel like this is a new relationship that we can keep growing.
I hope so.
And
I gotta come visit the alpaca.
Yeah, see, I shouldn't have told you that I didn't like it. Now I'm gonna have an alpaca. There's not a chance. Okay, awesome, Jeweliet. I'm gonna stop recording, and thanks so much for being on the show. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much.